Okay, chapter 6 of Atonement is one that's quite easy to overlook, I think. It's from the perspective of Emily Tallis, so particularly when you're looking at this novel and looking at childhood as a theme, as we are for Edexcel, it's quite easy to maybe just forget this and see it as unimportant. But there's a few bits, I think, that I'd like to draw your attention to, I think, that are worth looking at. So about 5 lines down, it describes Emily Tallis, and it says, she was not in pain, not yet. So again, that little insertion of not yet implies that she's almost waiting for the pain to come. Again, it's setting Emily up as this person who's playing the role of a victim almost. Very much like Mrs. Gradgrind, she's expecting the migraines to come. Sums up the weaker role of women at the time. The fact that her old way of life is sort of dying out as well. And that's followed on by the next couple of words, she was retreating before its threat. So we've had references to civil war and refugees with Lola and the twins. And here again, we've got that imagery of war coming in again. She's retreating, just like the men retreat to Dunkirk in part 2. So we've got the context and the sort of childhood side by side here. Okay, Emily is this weak woman, which sets Bryony up on all the mistakes that she makes. But actually also contextually, Emily is in a weaker position. That way of life is dying out. Bryony's childhood is going to disappear anyway, because that way of life is going to disappear. This is followed on about halfway down page 64, when Emily Tallis feels that everything was shrinking. She feels that the house is literally shrinking in around her. So this migraine that makes her feel like that is a bit of a symbol for exactly what's happening to their way of life and their families and their old values. It's shrinking around them. It's changing. The world's changing. The house is sort of shrinking. By the end, obviously, it becomes a hotel. So on the one hand, Emily is weak. On the other hand, that's what's happening to society at that time. And she sort of muses throughout page 64 and top of 65 about the ways of life that are dying out. Just over halfway down page 65, Emily starts thinking about Lola, and Lola's described as the incarnation of Emily's younger sister, who'd been just as precocious and scheming. So there's that idea that Emily sees Lola very much as her mother's daughter. So the relationship between Emily and Hermione, Lola's mum, is similar to that between Bryony and Lola. So again, there's that idea of history almost repeating itself, and Emily's weakness allowing Bryony to make the same mistakes maybe as she's made by indulging Lola in the way that she has indulged Hermione. About 4 or 5 lines from the bottom of page 65, again she heard another tick as the building shrank tighter. This way of life is dying out. Bryony's looking back, remember when she's telling the story of Atonement, at this way of life and almost watching it shrink before her eyes. Her innocence is shrinking, but also that way of life is shrinking. The shrinking tighter is great to talk about childhood, but also context. About 5 lines down page 66, we get illness that stopped to giving her children all her mother should. So again, Emily is this weak woman who hasn't looked after her children properly. Bit of the opposite of Gradgrind, I suppose, isn't it? Because Gradgrind is this very strong, square figure in hard times, but his children have got deficiencies because of his way of life, and as he gets weaker, actually things maybe sort of improve for the Gradgrind family. Here it's the opposite. Emily is weak, and therefore a lot of the problems have have been created by Emily disappearing as that mother figure. When we get onto page 68, about halfway down, we get Emily musing on the fact that Bryony's vanished into an intact inner world of which the writing was no more than the visible surface, the protective crust which even or especially a loving mother could not penetrate. The idea of Bryony as a writer almost keeping her mother out. As she finds her own identity, Emily feels threatened because she's losing that bond with her daughter. There's that idea as the novel continues, isn't there? As Bryony becomes a writer, she actually stops thinking of Emily, stops telling her everything. Okay, the children call her Emily, it's referenced in this chapter. She isn't this mother figure. Bryony has to almost escape her. Bottom of page 68, we get the muted thunder of the plumbing. Remember, right at the start, it's a tempest. There's a storm coming, metaphorically. Here we get the thunder of the plumbing. That idea again that things are changing. We're in this heat wave, we're in this childish world, but it's a world that's not going to continue. The nursery rhymes are going to die out, but so is this way of life. The thunder's coming. On to page 69, Emily's weakness is summed up again. About 3/4 of the way down, she hears a little squeal of laughter abruptly smothered. She knows it's Paul Marshall with Lola and the twins, but she thinks, oh, he can't be so bad after all. He's obviously very good with children. She fails to sort of see the threat that he poses. She fails to stop their innocence being taken away by Paul Marshall, actually, in much the same way as Gradgrind never protects Louisa from Bounderby and from Harthouse. Okay, these failures of parents follow on to the children, which is why the thunder, which is why the tempest are so important here. Okay, contextually the world's changing, but also in terms of childhood, these weak parent characters are allowing these problems to happen, are allowing these children's innocence to be lost. Okay, so that's that chapter. Like I say, quite short, not loads to focus on, but I think those few bits will be really helpful when you're looking at childhood and relating it to context.